Good afternoon, everybody. Today is January 31st, and this is the NRNRC Black Table Talk Podcast Edition. And today we got some very special guests from the Washington Lawyers Committee. And I will start with them introducing themselves, and we'll get right into it. To my left, I have...
Hey, Travis. Nice to be here. I am Joanna Wasik, and I'm a Deputy Legal Director at the Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights.
Hey, Joanna. And to my right, I have...
Hi, Travis. I'm Sophia. I'm a workers' rights attorney at the Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Urban Affairs.
Good to have you, Sophia. So here we are. I want to start a little bit because this is a different type of guest right here. You know, we've had lawyers before, but the Washington Lawyers Committee, they're special. And I would like to start out with maybe you, Joanna. You talk a little bit about yourself and how you became who you are with the Washington Lawyers Committee.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, it's so nice to be on this podcast, and we love the National Reentry Network right back. We think you guys are special as well. So I've been at the Washington Lawyers Committee since 2019, and what really brought me here, I've been here for a while now, is just the committee's racial justice mission and its focus on the DMV community in particular. So we're not a national organization. We really focus on working with community groups in D.C., in Maryland, and in Virginia, and hearing from folks who are directly impacted about what are the civil rights issues that are most important to them, and how should we as lawyers be using our tools to solve those issues that are important to directly impacted people. So the way that the Washington Lawyers Committee does its work, I think, is unique, and that's what really drew me to the place. And in addition to that, I get to work with awesome people like Sophia, so love that on a daily basis.
Yeah, awesome Sophia. I like that. What about you, Sophia?
So I was a restaurant worker for 8 years and saw how things like race or sex can impact a worker's life. So I came to DC to go to GW when I was an undergrad, and then I eventually went to University of the District of Columbia, which is a public interest focused law school, and particularly does a lot of work in the DMV area for DMV residents. And then I was able to get a fellowship at the Washington Lawyers Committee as a Georgetown Women's Law and Public Policy Fellow, where we, in that fellowship, did a lot of work around gender justice issues, and I had an opportunity to work with Joanna and the workers' rights team on workers' rights, particularly when it comes to gender and sexual harassment. And then this past September, I was hired on as an associate counsel, where I get to do a lot broader work with workers' rights, like these Know Your Rights trainings with the National Reentry Network, and wage theft issues and discrimination in the workplace.
Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
I mean, you go from working in a restaurant for 8 years to now making changes, within the community and with businesses and things of that manner.
Yeah.
I mean, how cool is that?
She's the coolest. We're super lucky to have her.
Well, you said awesome, so, how awesome is that? So it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, both of you were in a different type of path, and you were, called to this. You seen injustices, and it's like, I want to do something about this.
Yeah.
And you come to a nonprofit. Washington Lawyers Committee is a nonprofit, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, you come to the nonprofit, and you said, okay, this is my calling. Let's get to work. Let's make a change. So now we're here, and right now you're working with the National Reentry Network for Returning Citizens in our Ready for Work program. And you have a workshop monthly dealing with workers' rights training. So what is that all about?
Yeah, so part of what we do at the committee is public education and getting out there in the community and talking with folks about what rights they already have and how they can use those rights to assert themselves, whether it's, in the workplace or in their housing issues, when confronting police abuse, all of those areas that the committee works on. For me and Sophia in particular, it's workers' rights in the workplace. So we find it super important to get out there and tell people about how to protect themselves against wage theft, right? You need to trust but verify your employer and how they're paying you and what they're doing. Take a look at that paycheck. We tell people who might be facing discrimination or maybe sexual harassment in the workplace, and they're not sure what exactly to do about it, because that can be a really vulnerable position. So empowering people with the knowledge of what is, what isn't okay, and what they can do about it, and that advice is really important to us. And then also specifically at the National Reentry Network, working with folks who are entering maybe the workplace for the first time or re-entering it after some time, who may have an arrest and conviction record and have that come up as a barrier for them to finding work. I would say that, first of all, we think that's really unjust, because everyone deserves to have a pathway to be a contributing member of society. And part of that is having safe, steady work that treats you well. So that's what we stand for, and that's why we come out and talk to people about the laws that protect them when they have an arrest and conviction record and they're looking for a job out in the workplace.
Great. Sophia, can you add a little more to that?
Yeah, so some of the other topics that we talk about during our trainings are at-will employment, and what that means is you can be fired for any reason, a bad reason, or no reason at all if you aren't part of a union or have a contract. So, with at-will employment, you can't be fired for a illegal reason. And one of those reasons is discrimination, and that's some of the topics that Joanna is talking about. So during these trainings, we really give information about what discrimination might look like, and what discrimination might look like if you have a conviction record, and how the protections might look different for that.
So I got a question, because Joanna, you said that if my boss comes in and he's grumpy that day, and this is for our listeners as well, because I know this is kind of like unbelievable, but it's law. But I was wondering if you can expound on it a little more. If my boss comes in and he's having a bad day and he's grumpy, and he just says, "Travis, you're fired," I'm fired, and that's legal.
That is probably legal. Yes. So that is going to that concept of at-will employment that Sophia was talking about. So if you're in a union, this doesn't apply to you, right? You have protections in your collective bargaining agreement. If you have an employment contract, this doesn't apply to you. You probably have protections in that contract. But for the rest of us, right? Like Sophia was saying, if your boss is just grumpy, that's a bad reason to fire you, but it is legal. Now, I want to be clear. Is it good management? No. Is it going to make people want to work for that boss? No. Is it going to get that employer a good reputation in the community? No. Is it going to make your coworkers kind of mad at your boss? Absolutely. But is it legal? Yeah, it's legal under at-will employment.
Unbelievable. At-will employment is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, with all you deal with workers' rights and with sexual harassment and discrimination, what type of complaints or type of help do you give out the most? Is it like sexual harassment? Is it wage step, or what is it?
We have a variety of issues that come through our workers' rights clinic. It's a free clinic that we hold every Wednesday and the first and third Friday of every month over the phone. And we have some in-person clinics coming up on Saturdays as well in our Bread for the City location in Southeast DC. But some of the issues that we've been seeing through there is a lot of sexual harassment, particularly in the construction industry. Particularly with Latina construction workers, a lot of misclassification issues. Maybe employees are being classified as an independent contractor instead of an employee. And, there's different protections for employees versus independent contractors. And wage theft is another huge issue that we see coming through our clinic as well.
And Travis, we also do see folks with arrest and conviction records who come to us and are having all sorts of issues. And sometimes the legal protections are clear, but sometimes Sophia and I and our colleagues are there scratching our heads like, what is some creative way we can find to help this person or help this worker or advise them to make things better for themselves. It might be someone who has had a job for a while and then suddenly their employer changed the way they do their background checks, Like their employer just decided they're changing the background check system, and now that worker finds themselves out of a job for nothing. No reason, nothing about their work performance, but just because the employer decided to change something. Or just a lot of employers who maybe have prejudice or bias or just a lack of education around folks with arrest and conviction records, and are refusing to hire people for reasons that are unjustifiable, like an employer who won't hire anyone with a drug conviction, right? So we see those kinds of issues and try to advise around them as well.
I know with our Ready for Work program, we deal with, returning citizens and trying to get them jobs. And a lot of times calling different employers about a job, we can only get them like construction or janitorial work or food service. And I mean, these individuals, men and women, they may have some type of experience, and it's on their resume that they can do other things outside entry level type work in the basic construction work or janitorial or food service or some type of maintenance. But is there any way to combat that?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to hear more about what those employers are telling you. What are the reasons they're giving you when you call them up? Maybe if you can give me an example. What are they saying back to you about why they won't hire your folks?
They really don't say. I mean, in our organization, we have affiliates, employers that we call, and they are ready to receive, returning citizens as long as they fit, the criteria or they have a certain skill level. And sometimes they don't have to have any skills. They just say, hey, we got an opening. If we have any clients who would like to have a job in, like these types of areas, send them in. But we haven't had anybody really to say that, well, we don't hire returning citizens. It's kind of like a undercover type thing. They might go and we send them for an interview, and they come back and it's like, we'll call you, but we're not interested.
Gotcha.
Those type of things.
It's more pernicious and subtle like that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a few different ways to combat it. There isn't just one way. I think a lot of things have to work in concert, right? So part of the work that you all do by going out there and knocking on the doors and training up folks in your Ready to Work program, that is absolutely a piece of the puzzle. I think another piece is the public education that Sophia and I do in Know Your Rights training, so that when people are encountering that kind of situation when they're out looking for jobs, they know what recourse they might have, or they might see that red flag and say, hey, I should talk to someone about this. Maybe this didn't go down in a way that was legal or in a way that was proper, and I might be able to change it. And then I think also, there's a role for legislative advocacy, right, for groups to be working together to try to change laws that are hurting workers, not protecting them, and then also litigation or public campaigns and other ways of bringing attention to some of these issues is also, what I see as a piece of the puzzle.
Big piece of the puzzle, if you ask me. So I have another question, and this is concerning representation. There's plenty of contact numbers to where we can contact the Washington Lawyers Committee, and I just want to know, what is the fee for anybody who has, a legitimate issue they want to bring to the table, whether it's with workers' rights or whether it's with housing or whether it's the gender type thing, or what is the fee?
Yeah, for our workers' rights clinic, anybody who comes, it's free services. So you will be able to make a phone appointment, and then you will have an intake with one of our intake volunteers who will talk with one of our volunteer lawyers, and then you'll receive free legal advice that same day. Sometimes, depending on the complexity of the issue that you're bringing, one of our lawyers on our team might spend some extra time looking into it. But generally, you'll get free legal advice that same day.
You hear that, world? Free legal advice with the Washington Lawyers Committee. If you have any issues and you feel that they're valid, you can reach out to them, and they're there for you. No excuse anymore. No excuse. Now, I had something years ago, and I believed I was discriminated against. And I'm not gonna say the name of the employer or the business, but I seen back then it wasn't social media, so we actually had to look at the one ads in the newspaper. Tell them my age right now, but we looked at the one ads in the newspaper, and I seen a job that I was interested in, and they said hiring now, and I called, And for whatever reason, they may have heard I was black or urban, or well, or maybe even young, and they told me, "Sorry, our positions have been filled. We're not hiring anymore." So I had a friend of mine who was a woman, and she called, and they asked her to come in for an interview, and they asked her when she could start. She said she could start right away. So, but she didn't want to go, but she thought it was just kind of like fishy and strange that if you're hiring, and this was just came out in the newspaper that day. But when I called, I was told that the positions had been filled. So is that discrimination?
I agree with your friend in that sounds super fishy. So questions, if you came to talk to us at the Washington Lawyers Committee, some questions that Sophia might be and I might be asking ourselves or ask you would be, so were you qualified for the job? Did you have all the necessary things that they were looking for? And then evidence we could find, like your friend did, to see was the reason that they gave that their job was closed, was it just a pretext? Were they trying to use it? But really their real reason for not hiring you was something else. So the way that your friend applied is a very good test of whether or not the reason that they gave was false, right? It was fake. It was just a facade. We might look at other things. For example, we could go online and see if they were still posting for the job after you applied, because that could be some more evidence in your favor that the reason they gave you was just this facade, and the real reason was pretextual, and maybe was your gender or your race or your age or any of those things that are protected under the law. So those are some of the questions we would ask you. I think just on what you've told us now, that does smell a little fishy to me.
You just have to dive a little deeper into what was said, what was done, and see if we can come up with any type of proof or evidence.
Absolutely, and we, as we always say to the Ready for Work folks in our Know Your Rights trainings, and anyone who asks us, write it all down, document it, keep any evidence yourself, right? Make a quick note to yourself of what that person told you, what their name was, who you were speaking to, anything you can find on the website about the job still being open, definitely your friend's experience, write that all down. So that's how you build evidence in a case.
I know a lot of times that when you come for a complaint, if you want to sue or whatever case it may be, how long is the process in getting justice? Sophia?
I mean, it depends on the situation. So if you are filing a federal complaint for a Title VII violation for discrimination in the workplace, you would have to start with filing with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which is a U.S. government agency. And then they would do an investigation for 180 days, determining what happened. So they would look into the facts that you send in. They would interview the opposing party. So it's a 180-day process for their investigation. And then after that 180 days, you potentially have the option to file in court after that.
So you really have to be patient. So let's say after these 180 days, and we take it to court, how long is that process?
So again, you're going to get the lawyerly answer. It depends. But it depends how far you go in your case. If you're going all the way through the process, all the way to a jury trial, and that's how your case is concluding, hopefully winning, that can take years. That can take years. But there are ways that the case can end earlier. So obviously you can lose your case earlier at various points, but let's say you're winning and you have a strong case. You could choose to settle the case at any point in the litigation if you really feel like, hey, it's not in my interest to keep drawing this out, and the defendant is offering me what I want out of this, right? That's the justice I'm seeking. You can resolve the case out of court with a settlement at any point, and that can make your case short or long. Or you can, there is one point before trial when the defendant can ask the judge to, based on all the evidence you've gathered, throw out the case, or you can ask the judge, based on all the evidence that you've gathered, to rule for you. Like, judge, there's not even any reason for us to go to a jury trial. The evidence is so strong in our favor that as a matter of law, Your Honor, you can find for me. And so that's another juncture that you can win. So that would be shorter than going all the way to a jury trial. But it really depends. It depends how much of a fight the defendant is putting up. It depends how contested the issues and thorny they are in your case. Any number of factors.
So that means anybody that comes to the Washington Lawyers Committee or anywhere else and looking to fight, say, sex harassment, look to go in for the long haul.
That's right. That's right. Look to go in for the long haul. Have a good reason for why you're doing this, right, why you're pursuing this, and then we always advise our clients, rely on your support system. Whoever that is in your family, your friends, your counselors, whoever that might be in your life, you might have to draw upon that network while you're litigating a case and fighting for justice. And you should plan to do that. And a lot of people have been victorious, and it helps to be well supported.
I mean, if you have a legitimate issue, it's definitely worth the fight, no matter how long it is. I mean, justice is justice.
Yeah, and sometimes when you come to our clinic, we might even start just with a demand letter. So that's writing a letter to the employer, letting them know, this is the situation that happened. This is potentially how the person tried to remedy the situation amongst like supervisors or HR. But these were how their rights were violated, and it's a step before even filing a charge with an administrative agency or filing in court. It could be a first step. So that's something that one of the services we provide at our clinic.
Y'all do a lot of good work. I need to find something to fight for. I got one more question, because you all are a nonprofit, and we are a nonprofit as well. How do laws, workers' rights laws, and discrimination, and the sex harassment, all the other workers' rights that are compiled into what they are? How do nonprofits play in all this?
Yeah, so looking just at the workers' rights space, the federal laws and the D.C. laws apply to employers. And they apply to employers that have a certain number of employees or greater. And that does not matter if the employer is a nonprofit or a for-profit entity or government entity, right? The laws cover all of those spaces. It more has to do with how large is that employer.
Okay. That's good to know, because I seen a stat a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, and it said in Washington, D.C., not the area, but Washington, D.C., period, there's 14,700 plus nonprofits.
Wow.
And they're allotted like $75 billion.
Wow.
So, I mean, it sounds like nonprofits are big business.
I think this is a big area.
Yeah.
People want to do, yeah.
But I just, after reading, I was like, I wonder when Joanna and Sophia comes in, how do nonprofits, I was going to ask, how do nonprofits play in all of this, workers' right type thing? But thank you for clarifying it.
Yep. Nonprofits are not exempt. They are covered. Absolutely. 100%.
Okay. I'm not looking to do anything. I'm just, just for the listeners out there. I love my nonprofit. I love y'all nonprofit. We work good together, and I believe we're doing good work, and going to do even more good work. When we end off of the podcast, I always like to ask for our guests to end off with good positive words, or words, to leave with them that will resonate in their hearts and minds. So I'm going to ask Sophia, and I'm going to ask you, Joanna, to give us some words, that we can grow on.
One of my favorite quotes, and I think it's by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, is "Speak your mind even if your voice shakes." A lot of these violations of workers' rights can be very emotionally draining. And, if you speak up when you're being taken advantage of at work, whether it's because of your race or religion, or you're not being paid the right amount, like, you can help yourself and you can help other people in your workplace and community.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that.
I love that. I'll build off that. I was going to say, stand up, speak up, and strengthen numbers. I think that is absolutely true in the workers' rights space, when workers come together and talk to each other about common issues that they're experiencing or sharing, or systemic issues that are happening, right? If we see across DC, or if people in the Ready for Work program are noticing a trend, coming together and raising our voices collectively is always the most powerful. So seek out those people on your side. We're here with you, and stand up and speak up.
All right. Thanks for having y'all today. I thank you for being here. Y'all busy. There's a lot of work to be done, and you're doing it, but you came in and spent a little time with little old me to share what's going on with the Washington Lawyers Committee and workers' rights and things of that manner. Thanks for coming in.
It's our pleasure, and we'll see you next month for our next training.
All right. This is the NRC Black Table Talk podcast, and we are now signing out, but never signing off, because there's always work to be done in communities. Boots to the ground, y'all. Y'all do good.